And now, fresh off a 30-year break from his life in over-the-air radio, here's the host of the most originally named 15 Years Too Late podcast, JaySapChats.
All right, welcome. Very special guest today with me, Julie Berninger, who is probably one of my favorite entrepreneurs that I've ever had the opportunity to have coffee with.
I'm so flattered. You have such a network of people too, so thank you.
I mean, I do have a network of people, that's true, but you're just so damn smart.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I'm a risk taker. I wouldn't call myself a smarty pants, but I'm a risk taker for sure.
All right, well, all right. Let's get our bones out of the way first, right? You're a mammoth, so that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I noticed you've been wearing the Williams shirts on your podcast.
I have. I didn't wear it today because I figured that'd be too aggressive with you.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to start something.
Yeah,
we're on your turf.
And here's sort of the reality is Amherst was so good at golf this year, and they're going to nationals, and yeah, they kind of crushed Williams this year. So
I just signed my daughter up for golf. Maybe she'll be a future mammoth golfer.
Maybe, yeah. Well, she'd get a great education, that's for sure. So here's the truth, right? So my son goes to Williams. You went to Amherst College. We bonded over being, sort of NESCAC adjacent and connected. My son is friends with all those kids on the Amherst golf team. I mean, they are all, everybody, they're super close. They're going to be in New York City together working at major companies, and they all play the game really well, and they kind of realize that they had a special opportunity. So rivalry, but, it's funny. He said to me, you know what he said? He goes, the only sport I don't hate Amherst in is golf.
That's fair. That's fair.
Which is the kids he plays. So, all right. Well, I mean, co-founder, we'll get it. I like to start at the beginning, but you're the co-founder, founder of Gold City Ventures. And you've been at it now for 5 years, a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So just give us an overview. What is Gold City? What is it?
So we are a membership community that helps Etsy sellers sell digital products starting from scratch.
And that's been over the last 5 years. I imagine you've ridden the wave of COVID and people selling at home, and it's just been sensational still.
Yes. So we started in July 2019, and the timing could not have been better because it gave us a good 9 months to get sorted right before the pandemic, work from home drama happened. And with that explosion, we saw a lot of new people who were interested in finding ways to make money from their computers in a more flexible way working from home. And we already had the brand equity where people knew about Etsy. They knew what Etsy was, but maybe they didn't know they could sell digital products on Etsy. And that's where they would come in, and we've had 20,000 students who've taken our courses and been part of our community, and it's been a blast.
Yeah. I mean, how crazy, right? Like, you try to come up with the perfect idea. And as an entrepreneur, I mean, I was with Marquis Jet. I was, top 10 and 12, 13, I don't know what number, but close to like day one Marquis Jet, early, zero revenue, put it that way. And we ideated the product in July of 2001, and then 9/11 happened. And, it looked opportunistic because we really launched in January of 2002, but the idea was baked in the cake in July. And private travel, you can imagine, just went like, took off, pun intended. And you sort of had that same quote unquote luck, right?
Right.
When you launched.
It's luck, but I'm sure for you, it feels very stressful in the moment because I was on maternity leave with my first daughter, and I was starting to make some money online on the side, and I was working at Amazon, and I asked other friends in the niche who are more established than me, should I leave Amazon right now? And they told me March 2020, absolutely do not quit your job. Like, there's weird stuff happening out there. Do both. So for a year and a half, I worked at Amazon during the day, and then I built this company at night with a baby at home with no daycare. And my husband and I completely lost our minds during that time, and we've since
Yeah.
recovered. But when I think about that time, I mean, it was opportunistic. It did work out, but going through it was not easy.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I mean, it's not luck. You make your own luck, but there are events that are out of our control that happen, and sometimes they work in our favor. And that's what I reference by luck. But that's a good segue. I like to go back in time on my podcasts, and I like to talk about like where it starts, because I don't know if anybody, like, do you think people are born to be entrepreneurs, or do you think they're made?
I think they're made. I didn't have. I did have a lemonade stand, but who didn't at that point? I mean, I think I just liked the freedom of it. But it was something that I saw other people when I was at Amherst College doing these entrepreneurial things. I had a friend that started a company called Mass Drinks, where he would deliver Gatorade packages to hungover people. And in my head, I didn't realize that didn't need anyone's permission to do something like that. Like, he just went to Costco and he bought drinks and he delivered it to people, and then people found out and they ordered them. It took a long time for me to realize that if I wanted these opportunities, I had to make them myself.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Canton, Massachusetts,
Okay.
in the suburbs and outside of Boston.
Yeah.
And it was a very middle class, upper middle class experience. I would say my family was definitely very middle class by definition. So,
Mhm.
and Canton's not the wealthiest Massachusetts town, but most of my friends their parents were doctors, lawyers type things. And I was in with the smart, nerdy girls.
Okay.
So that was helpful to me because I saw the type of activities and things that they were involved in. And then I just went right in and did the same things as them.
Any brothers and sisters?
I have one sister, and she also went to a NESCAC. She went to Bates. And she
Okay.
is not an entrepreneur, but she worked at Amazon too, and she's successful in her career.
Okay. So what do your mom and dad do? Like, they work both outside the home, or?
Yes. So my dad is a payroll supervisor at a community college.
Okay.
And my mom we put processing associate on my financial aid application. I'm not sure exactly what she does, but the job allowed us to be flexible where she could take me to my activities and various things. And most of my childhood, she actually worked at night. So my dad worked during the day, my early childhood, and then
Uh-huh.
she would go and do the night 5 to 11 or whatever that shift was at her job. And that's kind of how my parents made it work. So I spent a lot of time with my dad actually when I was younger. And I think that's where a lot of my interest in education that kind of led to Amherst came from, because my
Mhm.
dad is one of those people that loves to tell you random facts. So I remember him like writing words in French down at the dinner table when he was probably making us SpaghettiOs or something, because he's not a
Mhm.
great cook. But I got a love of education and learning random things through him.
But not an entrepreneur, right? I mean,
No, 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 no. My parents are not.
both of your parents are 9 to 5, or it's not. I mean, I know your mom worked a different shift, but basically they're, work for someone else, right? You're not exposed to starting a business. Like, did you even have like, going through high school, did you even have a clue that you could start a business?
No, and I don't have any family members that are entrepreneurs either. And in fact, my parents, anytime they tried to do anything like that, it always backfired on them. Like, they used to own a triple decker in Hyde Park. And I remember going there with my dad for a while. But then bad stuff happened. They got sued by a horrible tenant. And I just remember it being so dramatic. So in my mind, I didn't actually connect entrepreneurship with good, or trying to do something on your own with good, for a long time.
So, okay, so then you get good grades, you're in with the nerdy group, but you're also an athlete at the same time.
Yes, so I played field hockey. And growing up, I tried all different things. But then
Mhm.
when I got to high school, for whatever reason, I just fell in love with field hockey. And truthfully, I thought the soccer girls were kind of mean. Like, I wasn't being a nerdy girl. I didn't quite fit in with the cool soccer girls, but the field hockey girls, they're a special breed. And my team was really good. So we were 2-time state champions when I was
Wow.
there. I was not the star of the team by any means, but I did get a chance to start when I was starting as a sophomore. So I was
Wow.
in the mix with the girls. We were successful, and I saw what hard work kind of leads to. And from there, I was looking to play in college, and that's where someone had told my parents about the NESCAC. And they were like, Julie's, if she's a good student, she might like there, and it's D3, and she could play, and she can get a good education too.
Right, and, like, it's crazy, because I talk to a lot of parents, especially around the golf world, grades opened up such amazing opportunities for all my kids. My daughter went to Wagner and she was in the theater program, and that's like making a sports team because they only accept less than 20 kids into the theater program every year because they're competing for time on the stage. You don't get there unless you have good grades. My son goes to, he went to Williams, and he played on the golf team. There were kids they recruited that couldn't get accepted to the school. And they ended up going to, I won't name the schools, but lesser schools, right? And it's like the network that you probably amassed when you went to Amherst had to be insane, right?
Insane doesn't even begin to describe it. Doesn't even begin. And just me coming in as I was intimidated my first year, honestly, because even though Canton is a good town in Massachusetts, the level of wealth that you will experience at these other schools, it's next level. So my Abercrombie sweatshirts that I had to beg my parents to buy me in high school were not cool at Amherst College. These girls are wearing
Yeah.
pearls and cable neck sweaters, and J. Crew was the more approachable brand. I remember my friends on the Feel Lucky team, we went shopping together over Christmas, and they're like, let's get you some stuff here. Like, let's
Yeah.
have you fit in. But beyond just the pure wealth, I mean, what these kids' parents did, the way that the people approached the world. And I think I might have had a chip on my shoulder kind of coming in, public
Yeah.
school, that type of thing. But I think about it totally different for my kids now. I mean, I want them to be around peers that are doing cool things. When I look at my friends and the alumni from Amherst and what they all do now, I mean, my friends from high school, they do cool things. I mean, a lot of doctors coming through Massachusetts. A lot of my friends
Yeah.
are in medical.
For sure.
But at Amherst, I mean, we have entrepreneurs. We have people that are really making an impact in whatever field they chose to do, very creative, interesting things. And I think it was just an incredible opportunity. And how lucky am I that I got that experience so young?
How do you think that being on the field hockey team, that guaranteed you friends when you went to college, right?
Yes. So at the beginning, it's very helpful because I had someone
Yeah.
to sit with, lunch, dinners. I had parties to go to automatically. The seniors helped you a lot. So I remember one of the seniors gave me her resume template, and I just deleted everything for hers and put my stuff in. They told me about, this class and take this class and here, apply to this internship. That type of stuff happened a lot. As someone that is the oldest in my family, I didn't get that experience, whereas you didn't need to join a sports team. Like I had
Yeah.
friends that had older
For
brothers
sure.
and sisters that already played the game that were telling them all the stuff. But for me, the sports team gave me that initial network. I think by the end of my time at Amherst, though, it was somewhat limiting, which is why I ended up not playing my senior year. I ended up playing club at UMass down the street, and then I had a great experience. But at the beginning, it was very helpful.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say the seniors, because I remember Benny struggled his first semester, and one of the seniors, David Brewer, whose dad is the CEO of Callaway, uh, and this kid's solid of the year. He's a great kid, and he pulled Ben aside. And he said, "Hey, kid, your degree is going to say Williams College, whether you take the 5 hardest classes every semester or the 5 easiest. Take classes that you're interested in. No reason to kill yourself." And every semester after that ended up being a really good experience for him because he had gotten that guidance from a senior that how if you were just a regular admission student, you wouldn't have gotten that. So are you in touch? Can you trace back to you know, your teammates and your friends in college? Do you have the continued relationships where you could see the businesses they're part of or started, or was it an entrepreneurial group you look back on it? Are they entrepreneurs? Were you an entrepreneur? How's that affected?
So one woman in my grade, Carly, she sold her company Modern Fertility for $100 million like 5 years ago or something. So we're not best friends. For me, I became best friends with the goalie. And the goalies are just a whole different personality if you've ever been on a sports
Oh,
team.
funny.
So my best friend was the goalie. So the two
The
of us.
grinder and the goalie.
Yeah. Yep. So the two of us, we kind of were off a little bit on our own. But I've stayed in touch with them, and I went to a road to 50 years of women being allowed to be in Amherst College and accepted into Amherst College, a networking event recently in Boston. And it was like stepping back in time 15, 20 years ago when we first met. No time had passed, and everyone is engaged, doing cool things. We were excited to see each other. I think for me, because I moved out to Colorado right after college, I did not stay in New York and Boston. I lost a little bit of the closeness with that
I
network
could
that I
see that.
had,
Yeah, for sure.
and I had to make my own way in a lot of ways, but it did prime me to figure out how to make my own way.
Yeah, but you're still not on this self journey aside from your moving out to Colorado, which, I moved out to Las Vegas. Like, there is something to be said for going out on your own and you're away from your family, you're away from your sister, you're away from your friends, you're away from your network. So take me through the initial part of your journey, and it starts corporate, right?
Yes, well, sort of. So
It's
when
only
I
sort of with you.
yeah, I know. So I graduated in May of 2011 from
Mhm.
college, and that was not a good time to graduate, particularly from Amherst College in general, for
Okay.
someone that had a little bit of a flip-flop background, because I did not go into college saying I want to be an entrepreneur and have a series of like working at internship at PepsiCo, internship at big name corporation to back me up, give me experience. I thought I wanted to be a doctor like my friends.
Oh, wow.
So I was working at Children's Hospital. I had like and then I thought maybe I wanted to be a lawyer because I ended up liking the political science classes. But really, I just like learning about the world and politics, and Amherst has a completely open curriculum, so it really let me explore.
Mhm.
So because of that, I graduated in 2011, which was post-recession, not a good time. People were not hiring students. We heard about people, hey, like all the interns from last year thought they had jobs, but they ended up getting cut.
I
It was just a
remember.
very weird time. So if you didn't, I was in a good position, but if you didn't come with like a super, super strong, cohesive resume,
Mhm.
it was a hard time to be graduating. So I ended up moving right back at home with my parents, which was nice that they invited me back. But after the freedom of living on my own in college, having to be back with my parents was challenging for both of us, I'm sure.
Sure.
But I did get a paralegal job, and I was doing that for, I think, like 6 months. But at the time, I was blogging because blogging was big. And I had some friends that we were all living at home. We were blogging together, and they were blogging about their lives. But my life was, in my mind, so quote unquote boring. There's no way I'm writing about my life. I wrote about what I was really excited about, which was my study abroad experience that I had at Amherst. So I started this website, which I've since let drop, but it was ilovestudyabroad.com. And that was my first time. I wasn't necessarily monetizing it as an entrepreneur, but I got the obsession, the bug. Like every day I'd come home from work from my paralegal job and I would sign on and I'd build this website. And I got students from all over to contribute their experiences from staying at these other countries when they were abroad. And even my sister who was at Bates, she's like, oh, my friends, like they know this website. We've been looking at this because she was going abroad the next year.
Was it like an informational? So, like, if you want to go abroad, you come to this and you like hear about other people's experiences and learn from it?
Yes. And we would pass around Word documents of like where to go abroad, because this was before you could look it up on Yelp really, or you could get information. So the
Yeah.
students needed to know where to go. So you would put
You were
everything like
building content before content was
yes,
in vogue.
about study abroad. So when I was doing this startup found me, and they were doing informational interviews with people. And we took a phone call, and they were just trying to learn about the space because they were trying to start this company in the space. They were very similar age to me. Maybe they were like 23 or something, and I was
Mhm.
22. But they had been raising money from family and friends to launch this study abroad blogging startup. And once we talked, they were like, oh, you're so passionate about this. Like, you need to come on board with us. So they didn't have any money to pay anyone. And, we were building this together. We had a very small investment from someone's poor family member that signed up to donate to this. But we made our own blogging platform with like $15,000, which
Wow.
ironically, the next year I ended up becoming a tech project manager. And I think we totally blew through that relative's money. Like just the things that I'd learned later, I'm like, oh, we did everything wrong. Just like
So
letting
the end of
this.
the story isn't that it became TripAdvisor.
No, it did not. And then we tried to apply to like tech stars, and there was something startup chili, and the feedback was, hey, this is for study abroad. People do this for 4 months and then your customer is gone.
Mhm.
And it's all content. So, it wasn't the best laid business plan, but just the process of going through that was
Do you
really
think, like,
catalyst.
now, like, being as, like, experienced and seasoned as you are, that if you look back in time, that's 14 years ago, if you took and applied the knowledge you have now to that business in 2011, what do you think happens to it?
Oh, we would have got into Techstars and Startup Chili, and it would have been a whole different thing. But then I didn't have that experience, and
No, I
neither did the
understand. But
people.
like when you look back at what you were doing, like it's easy to look back, right? Like I can look back at it and say, like, wow, you were content before content was vogue, and you know you could have figured out how to grow, like you would have grown an audience and you would have monetized that audience and newsletters and all these sort of things where people do that now, and it's blogs and podcasts and things, where you would have become experts on Italy and you would have become experts on Ireland, et cetera, and so on, right? I mean, that could have been, I mean, you had the base for it.
We had definitely the base, and it became the founding blocks of my current company today. I mean, it's not too far off from the things that I did. And it did help me get my first real tech job. And it also helped me get an internship. The next thing I did was I interned at the United States Olympic Committee leading up to London. And that internship is very, very difficult to get.
How'd you get it?
And it's the craziest thing. Like you would think, oh, good college background or good grades, whatever. Nothing to do with that. They said, we saw the stats that you wrote for I Love Study Abroad and how you grew to 1,200% increase in Twitter followers. And they're like, this is exactly what we're hoping for. So it's everything I had kind of created on my own. And that was what I said, okay, I'm going to make my own opportunities. I call it building your own ladder. But like I needed to learn how to set the rungs for myself versus just putting into some world that other people had created.
It's amazing, like the common threads in entrepreneurial success that I've found by having these conversations and going back in time, right? Like I could talk to you about Gold City Ventures. We could talk about what you do now to be successful and all your strategies. There's probably content on the internet for all that stuff. Like I love this part because the common thread that I find is curiosity, which you have a deep level of curiosity to learning. And your current business is associated with something that you did when you were very young and had, what's the right way to express this? No scar tissue. And like I trace my career back to a dry cleaners in college, And so I've done this now over a few times, and it just seems like that's a common thread with all entrepreneurs. So, here you are in an unsuccessful startup that lands you on the path because being an intern at the Olympics had to be, I mean, that had to be the catapult in your career, right?
I mean, it was huge. And it was just such an incredible experience. I met my husband there, and we got to live at the training center with the athletes. At the time, being young, we wanted to go out to the dive bars with the athletes too. And it was just, the experience was just so fun and cool. And then from there, I started to get opportunities. And I think one thing I learned, if you are going to work for someone else, work for the biggest brands that you possibly can early, because there are no brands that have higher value that people like. I mean, I worked for U.S. Olympic Committee, Apple, and Amazon. Those are like the top ones, and that matters, right? That matters to people. So I would recommend that to young people. I mean, there are some people like my business partner, they can just walk right out of college or even high school and they could just go right into it. But I think for a lot of us, we have to learn skills. So if you're going to learn skills, you might as well work places that have brand equity and that will teach you things.
So you interned with the Olympics and then they offer you a job post the internship?
They offered me a job like the first month, but another sport, USA field hockey, because of the Olympics, the Olympic Committee is the main hub, but then each sport is its own company.
Okay.
And being a field hockey player, I wanted to work for USA field hockey. So I went to USA field hockey right after, which that actually was tough because working for field hockey, I'm not saying it'd be better working for swimming, but that sport does not have tons of money. And in some ways, it was kind of difficult. Not that I ever compared myself to other people, but then at this point, I'm a year out of college. I'm comparing myself to some of my friends that went to New York, and they have these very big, fancy jobs. They're getting paid a lot, and I'm making $33,000 a year in a basement cubicle in Colorado Springs,
Yeah.
doing marketing for a sport that doesn't get tons of attention. That I think we came in like 11th out of 12 on the Olympics or something. Like
Right.
it
You're
wasn't an
talking
awesome
2000. You're
experience.
talking 2012, right?
Yes. So, but
Right.
it was
Women's
cool.
sports in 2012 is borderline irrelevant.
And it particularly, there were some, like, if you did the
Yeah,
main ones, swimming,
of
track, right? But
course.
field
Yeah.
hockey, it
I'm just
wasn't there.
talking about the times. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, there
Yes.
wasn't the SEC network and the Big Ten network, and you
No
weren't watching.
Caitlin Clark, no Angel Reese. It was
Yeah, but you're
different.
not watching. You're not watching Northwestern Illinois field hockey from Lakeside in Chicago at 9 o'clock at night on cable TV. I mean, that just didn't exist 13 years ago. That's a
No,
5 to 7 year phenomena that has enveloped. I mean, so
no.
you're at the forefront of women's sports in some ways.
But that was a good experience too, in that I lived in a very low cost of living place, and then also just being around the athletes. So at Amherst, it's all about success, career success. I mean, we did play
Uh-huh.
sports, but different. So then
Yeah.
I got my husband, he's training elite level Olympic hopefuls. So all of our friends at the time are people that are trying to make the Olympics. And so they don't care about money. They can't work a full-time job because with their training schedule, they just can't. And then they're going to Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan and all these places to compete.
Yeah.
And they have thousands of dollars racked up on credit cards because they're trying to make their dream. But their level of determination is the same as the entrepreneurs. It's just towards a different goal. So we're hanging out with all those people. And that was really cool for me to see too, just in terms of the lifestyle design. Because I would say one brand of entrepreneurship that I have is like I think a lot about my lifestyle, and that reflects in how my company runs. And a lot of that is from developing at that time, being around these athletes and realizing that there's not just one goal that everyone has in life. Like, we all have very different goals, and you can set your mind to achieve that goal and go as hard as you can towards it. But trying to think of, like, personally what you want is super important.
You amass any famous friends out of it?
I mean, unfortunately for our friends, most of them actually did not make the Olympics, and that was devastating for them.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, we would have friends still competing in judo up until age 29, 30, and then finally they kind of called it quits, and then they went over and became coaches. So it's learning about that whole thing is like a whole other world, because we all hear the good stories, and we also hear
Yeah.
the sponsorships.
Yeah.
But the judo people, they're not getting sponsorships by Nike,
Yeah.
or the major things. So the athletes, they have it pretty difficult, and it's incredible, some of the stories. But no, so I didn't necessarily best friend any Michael Phelps lookalikes, although I did see Michael Phelps there. Did not talk to him, because that was another thing. They would never give you the internship or work there if you were a super fan. So apparently anyone who wrote in their cover letter, like, I've always wanted to do this since I was little, they're like, reject, because they just think they're going to go full court press on the athletes and freak them out.
Yeah, the old adage, and I've shared this before, is you treat celebrities like regular people and regular people like celebrities. And these people just want to be treated normal, and
Yeah.
they don't want to be idolized. I mean, some do, but for the most part, they don't. What's that like, watching somebody chase their dreams? And I mean, you had to. I'm guessing if you befriended people and you were young and there and kind, and you're a decent human. Uh, I'm sure you. I'm sure there were a lot of. I'm sure you had a lot of tearful conversations with people who knew they weren't going to make it, and you've watched them chase the dream. Like, what? Any that stand out in your background that you can, like, recall from that time of your life?
I think my experience was, I'm coming in kind of as like the plus one, because Doug, my husband, he's their strength coach. So he's part of their team, like trying to help them make it. And so, for example, the athletes, they couldn't pay him. So this is another thing where, like, Doug and I have always talked about, in his field, like, the best people actually don't make that much money because the people that are paying them don't have that much money. But the athletes would, like, take us out for brunch as thank yous. Or we'd go, like, to a diner, or we'd go out to drinks. And Colorado Springs was so cheap. I mean, you can get like $4 beers there. It was just really good, like, things. We loved hiking. We did tons of outdoorsy stuff. So it was just more seeing them. But athletes are tough. They're like entrepreneurs. Like we're not to someone that's not super close to them. They're not like bawling their eyes out, telling you their problems, right? Like they're presenting very tough. And actually, particularly with judo, I was intimidated by a lot of the women because I played field hockey in college, but I'm not taking a girl down like Ronda Rousey style, just like headlocking her and, some of the incredible things that they could do. So when I first started dating Doug, I'm like, oh, I hope they like me because these girls are scary. But they were just so inspiring. So it was more uplifting, I would say, than like negative,
Yeah. I mean, but you had to draw strength from it to seeing the resilience, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
because it's comparable. So, all right. So take me through, we're on the journey. You're working for USA Field Hockey. You do that for 3 years?
No, I was
2 years?
the
1 year?
worst millennial. So I was at the beginning, I didn't worry about like how long you're at a company. I just was,
You were out in a year?
yeah. So I think I probably worked there maybe about a year. And at the time, okay, so I was blogging about study abroad, but then I started getting into travel hacking because we didn't have much money. And actually, the first 3 months of me working there, my husband was at University of Michigan. He was my boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to visit him, but I didn't have money to travel from Colorado to Michigan. So I got into the travel cards and miles game, like very deep. And of course, once I got into it, I wanted to be a content creator. So I went to a travel conference. I forget the name of it at the time, but I met all these credit card rewards people, and I was like really racking up all the points doing gift card churning at the grocery store and having a blast. So I created this brand that was going to be around travel hacking. And it was like when I started getting into what ultimately led to my path for personal finance journey. But through that, I realized this is not where I wanted to be with USA Field Hockey. And I would say I needed to be at a bigger company, I realized, because I loved my boss at USA Field Hockey. He was British. He did a lot of real estate. So I remember in 2012, most of the women that I worked with, we were all young 20-something girls.
Yeah.
We bought houses at that time. So I bought a house in 2014, not when I was at USA Field Hockey, but there were a lot of girls I was working with, single buying houses 2012, which was, I think, because the boss was into this and he started telling us about it. But that was great because we're buying record low prices, how 2012 was. Real estate has helped us a lot in our background. But I was soaking up everything, but I just knew I need to work for a big company. So then I applied for MetLife, and I remember they offered me a job, and the boss there, his daughter went to Williams. So that's not how I got to see his desk. But once I got in and met with him, he's like, "Oh wow, like we've never hired anyone here from NESCAC, but my daughter's at Williams, and we'd love."
This is in Colorado.
Yes, because I wanted to stay in Denver. Young people, 20s. There's no better dream than living in Colorado. You're skiing, you're hiking. If you're an outdoorsy person, not all my friends loved it, but
unusual to come from Colorado to go to. I mean, there are kids that are from Colorado in the NESCAC, but it's not that usual. So he must have felt a certain kinship, and then you kind of got in there and did you, and that was the end of it, and you got the job. And
oh yeah, he made me a manager within like 12 months. So I was managing like people that were double my age. But it was a great opportunity. And then him and his peers were like, oh wow, like this type of person is what we need in this office. So then he would send me back. So I went back to Williams and I went back to Amherst, and he's like, just find more people like you. And then I started the little cohort there. So I hired 3 people from Williams and 3 people from Amherst, and then we started building MetLife as one of the big interviewers that went out to the schools. And it was cool. It was cool to give back in that way and, to give jobs to other people. And of course, the people that I hired, they did great.
Are you travel hacking at this point as well? Or did you put that to the side? Or if I look back in your history, is there always a side hustle as a common thread to every place that you've ever been?
I think there's always a side hustle until now, I would say, with having kids and then also reaching.
Well, the kids are the side hustle now.
Yeah, the kids are the side hustle. But I think at that point, so I was still very eager. And also I was the financial aid student and loan kid at Amherst. So I still had student loans. I married for love and not money. So Doug still had student loans. So we were both kind of on this journey to pay off our student loans. So until that happened, which was around 2016, 2017, when we finally finished, we were doing this. But travel hacking, it was more that, so I started getting a little more sophisticated at that point. I got into personal finance. So
Okay.
I was like, okay, we have a certain amount of money coming in. What do we do with it? So invested very early, maxed out 401ks. I became obsessed with this blogger, Mr. Money Mustache. Have you
Mm-hmm.
heard of him?
No.
Okay, so he was famous for retiring at 32,
Yeah.
and he also lived in Colorado. He
Like a
didn't.
Dave Ramsey type, or like even more
Yes,
intense?
way more intense than Dave Ramsey. Save like
Okay.
80% of your income.
Oh, wow.
That guy.
Okay. Yeah.
And then retire in 10 years. And then his kind of following were the bunch of these 30 somethings that they retired. They didn't have to work corporate. They traveled all around the world. Now, it was kind of weird for me because I really enjoyed corporate, but there were some things about working at MetLife. It was incredible. My boss was awesome. I couldn't have asked for a better boss. He's the type of boss. He was probably the last 5 years of his career. So you go into his office, he'd have his feet up on the desk, and he'd just be like telling you about life. You know what I mean? And it was just a different, but like giving
Yeah.
me good advice. It was just he was at a different point. Like it wasn't like when you got a boss that's 5 years older than you and you're competing with each other, or whatever. I mean,
Yeah, I get it.
I was the mentee, he was the mentor, and I just listened to whatever he said and implemented it. And that's kind of where I was. But I'm still working a 9 to 5. I'm still I had to be at a certain place at a certain time every single day.
Yeah, but
And
listen, I mean, I think though, as a business owner, you don't get employees like you. Like you have to look back and know, like these guys and gals, like who you worked for. I mean, they had, well, your company's called Gold City Ventures. They had gold in you, so you just don't get that. Like it's once in a lifetime stuff.
yes, and he knew how to play the game. So he used to parade all of us around because we were the satellite office, and actually
Mhm.
MetLife was in the South. So he would bring out the big bosses and be, because he didn't want them to close that office. So he'd be like, "Look at the talent that we have here," and we would be doing these presentations for
Yeah,
the big bosses, and they were like, "Wow, like this is a development site we're going to continue to invest in Colorado because they have this young pipeline that's coming up." So
he was
he was kind of a
also
genius.
he was also being very strategic relative to you because he knew that you had just left your last opportunity for a new opportunity in a very short period of time. So he was trying to extend your life at the company as well by continuing to both grow your career path, but also expose you to higher level people, because that's
Yeah.
one of the tactics where you definitely, you definitely keep people longer.
Yes, and it's definitely hard. So what ended up happening with me there, because they kept giving me more opportunities, and
Yeah.
I had nothing to complain about. I had a great lifestyle there, but I was learning about this personal finance stuff, and I was getting raises, and my salary really was increasing. But I realized at first I thought working there, if I want to be better, I need to learn more about finance. So I actually was studying for my CFA, and I'd wake up every day at 5 a.m. and I'd study for that in the coffee shops with all the retirees. It would be like me and 12 70-year-old guys from like
Yeah.
uh, the
Fantastic.
very red parts of Colorado, because they just like every day, I know they would ask me if I voted for Obama, and I just waited for that day, which they did ask me one day. They did. But it was like, it was cool to be doing that. But then I realized if I want to advance, it's not that I need to know about finance. I need to know about tech. So then I applied and was getting my master's online through Boston University.
Mm.
And from that, I started getting opportunities to participate more in the tech world. And I saw that there was this conference called the Grace Hopper Conference for Computing. And Grace Hopper was a big, prominent figure for women, for anyone in computing, but particularly for women in computing. You look at Grace Hopper as a important figure. And so I wanted to go to that conference, and I applied for a scholarship to go. I went. And then, of course, who's there? All the big companies are there. So I went to the Apple booth, and I met the director. She ended up becoming the director for the phone, and she was like, "Okay, let's do an interview kind of right now." And then they flew me out, and I went to my boss, my amazing boss, and I was like, "Hey, Apple just offered me this job, and it's a real. I mean, I'm going to be a project manager on the watch, and I'll get to move in California. It'll be really cool. I said, I don't know what to do because I love everything you've offered me here, but like this is such a cool opportunity." And he completely understood. I think he was kind of bummed because
Yeah, of course.
he had invested, 3.5 years in me, and um, The
But
other
you also built him a team too.
Yes, and he got to keep a lot of the people that I ended up bringing. He got to keep them for a while because
Yeah.
so he didn't lose everything.
Is a theory here if Apple offers you a role, you don't say no?
I don't think people should say no. You got to go. Now, I didn't
Okay.
last too long at Apple though either. But it was. I mean, I would never switch out that year of my life for anything. It was very important to
Are you
understanding how companies work.
are you solely focused on Apple? There's no side things. You're like all in. Like, are you?
No, I should have been. But I wouldn't have become who I am today had I
Okay.
been. But
So what happens during that Apple period? You moved to the Bay Area?
moved to the Bay Area. So in
Okay.
Colorado, my husband and I had bought this awesome house.
Mhm.
Like it was like 3 bedrooms, and we actually, a lot of the people that interned with him, they lived with us, so we had roommates. But it was just a really cool house. Then we go to the Bay Area, where for the same amount of money, we're in this like terrible apartment, and it's just a whole different lifestyle. But everything is walkable. The weather is incredible, and the people that you meet. Colorado had more of like the athlete scene, but the people that I talk with now, and like people like us that are entrepreneurs and interested in tech and learning new things, they're all there in California. So when people say go to California if you want to be in the action, it's just true. Particularly as a young person, that's the type of conversations you're having at barbecues, who your friends are. They just are interested in the things that you might be interested in. So that part was great. But the people that work at Apple are a special breed of human that live, breathe, die by the product. It's a type of job that they hire only the best. And to be the best, you have to give it your absolute everything. You cannot half-ass working at Apple. You cannot do that. Like, you have to really give it everything. And for me, I loved it, but I was interested in being an entrepreneur at this point. So I'm spending my lunch breaks
Oh,
listening
interesting.
to people that sell on Amazon, and I'm walking to and from Apple every day, learning about Etsy. And I got the bug because I learned about entrepreneurship at this time.
Mhm.
I'd been blogging, but that I was creating content, but I finally realized like, oh, I could have my own company. I didn't quite realize I could launch a big company, but I knew I could do something small. So
You're getting restless working for other people, basically, is what's
yes, and I
happening.
just knew, like people said, when once you work for yourself, you're unemployable.
Yes.
And I just hit the point where I knew what I wanted to do. And I loved working in tech. Like if I'm going to be and I learned there's a reason that Apple is Apple. When you go there, just the excellence, the way that people, as a project manager, how you manage the projects, I'm difficult sometimes to work with because I was a project manager at Apple. So you can imagine when that watch went in a box in the store, that software needs to be right. And there are a million things, a million questions that we asked or things that we did to make sure that it was the best possible experience for the user. And the amount that is spent on human design and UX there, and the amount of time that we spend on it to make sure when you just open the box, people understand how to use it and they're not getting stuck in weird wizards and they know what to do without having to be told what to do. All of that I learned there. Plus, the food was incredible. They had like chefs make us food. You had to pay for it, but it wasn't that expensive. We had live music. Jason Mraz was there. I mean, the weather couldn't have been better. It was an incredible experience, but I couldn't become who I was meant to be and work there. So at the same time, my sister,
How does somebody figure that out? Like, what's going on that you're like, you come home and you say, Doug, like, what, like, I got to leave Apple. Like, how do you figure that out?
I think at the time I had a boss she was maybe like 2 years older than me. And it was almost like a taste of my own medicine because now I'm getting this. And she was incredible. Like I think she runs their, AI division today. Like no doubt about it. This girl's a rock star. This woman's a
Yeah.
rock star. And I kind of saw like what greatness there looked like by
Yes.
watching her. And I just knew that I didn't want that.
You were willing to push yourself to be great like she did, but you weren't willing to do it for someone else.
Yes, I wanted to do it for myself.
So that's why you left.
Yes. And at the time, my sister got an offer to work for Amazon. So she flew out from Boston to Seattle.
Mhm.
And Amazon, when I had the Apple offer, I actually had the Amazon offer too. They both, I think, were at the conference. And I turned down Amazon for Apple. And then a year later, the recruiter had just randomly reached back out to me to say, hey, just checking in, seeing how you're doing a year later. And I'm like, oh, actually, I am interested in talking again about this type of role. And I ended up getting that offer at Amazon. So
But if you were ready to go on your own, why would you go to Amazon after the year at Apple? Like, why didn't you go out on your own at that point?
I think about this a lot with my own children. Like, will it be different for them? But
Uh-huh.
I think for me, and there's the privilege of, okay, I had my parents, they have a house in Canton. I could always live with them, right? But they're a payroll supervisor at a processing associate. They're not like really doing super great financially. I know there were a lot of money troubles growing up. So I didn't have a safety net. I wonder with my own kids if they would just be like, screw it. I'm just going to do it because they know that mom and dad have the background to be like, yeah, Joe's honest. I have all girls, so not Joe, but Joanna's on her computer for 3 months.
Oh, you're not done yet, but that's okay.
You think I don't know if I could do 4. I feel like
No,
3,
you
I'm
gotta
like,
have three. You have three, right?
so I have 2 girls. I'm
You
having a
have two.
3rd girl in September.
Oh, I didn't realize you were due. That's awesome. Okay, three's the right number. You can stop.
Yeah, I think this is it. So it's
Oh,
all
that's
ladies.
awesome. Oh,
Yes,
fantastic. All
thank
right,
you,
that's
thank
awesome.
you.
Congrats. I
But
didn't realize.
yeah, but thank you. So yeah, I think it might be different then. But in the case of me, and then also my husband, he's from rural Ohio. Like he grew up on
Yeah,
a farm, and the Amish live like 10 minutes down the street from him. It's just a whole different.
Lancaster, Ohio.
He's from Montville,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
it's very very out there.
I grew up near the Amish and
Oh, you
outside of
did? Oh, okay.
outside of Philadelphia. Yeah, Lancaster,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania is where the Amish are.
Yeah,
Um,
they're over in Middlefield, Ohio, and,
Middle
and places.
Ohio, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure there's tons of different communities, but that's the one that he's
Yeah.
near. But he doesn't necessarily, I mean, his parents, like, they have a
So you wanted to
beautiful.
create some financial stability before you went on your own. So you went
Yes,
to
there's
Amazon.
there's just no way. Like I I wasn't the type of kid that
Yeah.
would have been okay in that scenario, and I didn't have anything going. So for me, I didn't actually, like I mentioned to you, I worked a year with making good money at Gold City Ventures and working at Amazon,
Yeah.
almost just to give myself that blanket. But I'm so glad I did because now I operate from a place of there's no financial stress because
Well,
I
that's a
can
whole
afford my
different,
life here.
but that's a whole different thing. I mean, like you talk about like, what you grew up with your parents and financial challenges because they had, you know, normal jobs.
Yeah.
Um, your kids may not have those same financial pressures because you're both uh incredibly financially adept, and whether you had a successful business or not probably would have created wealth for yourself. Um, the whole millionaire next door type thing.
Hmm.
But you have had financial success in your successes in business.
Yep.
So
But yeah,
like you're
that's
gonna
why I
have
was at Amazon.
but you're gonna have a whole different thing going on with your kids.
It will just be different, and I'm just curious. Although
Right.
there's not much time between when you graduate college and for women when you maybe should start thinking about having your first kid. There's not tons of time there, so I wonder like how much faster could I have done it? How much, But so I don't have regrets, and honestly, the Seattle experience and Amazon. Like Apple, it also hires a lot of cool people. So my
Yeah.
friends were really cool, and I miss them all the time. I mean, we bought a little house, like a little bungalow, in the city. It was a little neighborhood called Ballard, but like we would walk to coffee shops and restaurants, and I'd go to tons of startup events because I could just take an Uber and get there in 5 minutes. And it was just cool. My friends started having kids, we actually had like a good little community. But when
Would you
pandemic
see
hit and
people
stuff,
would you see people from the Amazon world at the startup events?
yes, yes. And you didn't have to hide it at Amazon. At Apple, I felt
Really?
terrified of sharing anything that I did on the side because one, maybe it would look like I wasn't committed. Two, Apple's very secretive, so they don't really like it could blow up their launch if you accidentally leak something. Like I was terrified there. But at Amazon, I mean, I told them in the interview straight out, like, oh, I sell on Etsy, I do all these things. And they're like, oh, that's cool. This guy sells toasters on Amazon. And I would see people that they're starting a shoe company in Mexico, but they also work at Amazon. It was just the culture there so much more open to this.
Oh, that's interesting.
A very entrepreneurial culture there.
Really? Whereas Apple
Mhm.
doesn't. Apple has like
I'm sure
Apple's a cult-like culture.
Apple churns out, I mean, ex-employees are making tons of
Yeah,
cool things, and they're very talented, but
ex-employees. Like
I
you have to leave Apple to be successsul outside of Apple.
this is just my opinion as
Yeah.
someone. I was 26, 27 when I worked there, so who knows? Maybe I was just a little being afraid, and I could have had a different path. But for me, I thought I don't think I could do it because also I don't want to be someone that's not giving a job everything that I could and not being the
Yeah.
best. So I just knew like if I want to be as good as these other people that I saw, I need to be really giving this my all.
What's always fascinated me about you since the first time we had a cup of coffee is I do believe 99.9% of the people who are with MetLife, Apple, Amazon, the brands, right? The brand names. Like, so you and I went a little bit of a different route. You went brand name,
Mhm.
I went industry. So PGA Tour, private jets, luxury villas, right? Each of us has a way we can tell our story that's very sexy and
Mhm.
very alluring, right? But 99% of the people, I probably in my world too, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many jet brokers I know now, right? Who were part of one of the big private jet companies when we were building them, when they didn't exist in the early 2000s. But your story, like most people get handcuffed.
Yes. And I think I don't think everyone wants this though. Because if you think about it this way,
Well, it's choose your pain, no?
it's choose your pain, but also it's like, for example, if I stayed at Apple, I mean, I'm pretty sure the woman that I worked for runs all of Apple AI. Her
Yes.
impact is so huge
Hmm.
compared to my impact right now. So some people care about that, or like, hey, I worked on a phone that is in every
Sure.
single person's pocket. You know, not everyone cares about.
No, they care about the brand too, but like they
Yeah,
can tell their friends that they work at Apple.
yeah. I mean,
And they also want the security of knowing somebody else is signing their paycheck and, that, like you said, they're doing important in their mind work.
yeah.
I mean, I'd argue the phone's less than important work. I'd argue that it's the probably downfall of society, but that's probably a different discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really tell. But like for example, the guy that sat next to me, he was a project manager on a lot of the features for safety for the watch, which I'm sure helped people. Like you hear about somebody, oh, this person, my car
Yeah.
flipped, and they came, emergency rescue came to get me because they knew that I had my watch on, or whatever. I mean, there are things that are positive coming from that. But yeah, I
My
definitely
over
hear you.
my overarching point is that it's really hard to break free when you have a position where people perceive it to be greater even than it may be. Now, you had positions that were great, but you're with Apple, you're with Amazon. I mean, those are really incredibly sexy and cool and iconic and known brands that when you go to dinner parties or you're at a bar or your family or on social media, you tell people you're part of, right? Like when you say, now I could tell you what's been better for your life, but when you say you're with Gold City Ventures, the first question is, what's that?
What is that? Yeah. And I remember this specific moment. So I went to my friend from high school's wedding, and she's a doctor, and her fiance is a doctor, and her dad was a big doctor. He was like appointed by Obama for something for being a doctor. But we're all sitting at the table, and her dad was so proud that she had a diverse group of friends that were doing very well. And so he asked us all, what do we do one by one? And everyone's like, I'm a doctor here, I'm a doctor here, I'm a doctor here. And then I said Apple, and he was like, Apple. And then they just all like, it's the type of, you're working at a type of place that it means something to people. And
Yes,
now I'm kind of, I don't want to say like Siddhartha because I'm an entrepreneur. That's cool. People think that's cool too, but it's like I had to go back a little bit and get rid of any brand associations or brand equity just to be willing to
it's
get
humility.
on your own.
It's being egoless. It's understanding what you want. Like you mentioned, like give me just a few more minutes left. We're with Julie Berninger, who's just this awesome entrepreneur and is the founder of Gold City Ventures, and we'll tell you how to get in contact with her. But just give me like give me like a few minutes on, you mentioned this is a lifestyle choice for you. So I'll never know what it's like to be a working mother. Like, I think that's the most amazing thing. My number two here at Ink Stores is a working mother. She's got two kids. I was with her through the whole process. I mean, just like, not with her, but like, she worked for me for 10, she's been here 10 years.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I knew her before she was married. I was at her wedding. Um, it's the most amazing thing. I mean, I watched my wife for the first 12 years didn't work outside the home. But here you're the boss, like you're the deal. So tell me, when you say like it's a lifestyle company, like what's that mean? Like how did that evolve? Did you build it for that? Like just give me a few minutes on that or a second.
So I was heavily influenced by that guy, Mr. Money Mustache. And Doug and I would travel all around the world. Ecuador, we visited people in Scotland, people that retired early, and we just observed their life. Then I had a podcast where I interviewed over 200 people that did different stuff and lived different lifestyles. So I had a very good idea before we had kids of what we wanted. And the 9 to 5 for either of us did not fit what we wanted in terms
Mm,
of, I like agency of being able to do what I want to do. Like I love that flow of, if I'm really excited about implementing an idea, at work sometimes like, oh, well, there's no time for that. You got to wait till, 15 days from now after this has happened. But in my own business, with some guardrails, I can go with the flow. So that was important to me. We wanted the ability to be a little more present around our kids.
mhm.
So I would 100% have had to send my kids to daycare, which there's nothing wrong with daycare. But for me, with two things, like I wanted to be more present, but then also my oldest got febrile seizures. So every time she was sick, there was always a fear that she was going to seize in her sleep. She's since outgrown them, thank goodness, but it
That's
was
awesome.
very stressful at that time. So
Yeah.
putting her in an environment with a bunch of germy kids, particularly post pandemic, that time frame when all the kids were getting sick all the time, it just wasn't. It wasn't what we were wanting to do. It was like the lifestyle stress that came with was not
Yeah.
good. And I liked the idea of being able to travel and if we want to go down the Cape or we want to do different things or go see my husband's family in Ohio, like we don't have to try to beg for any extra vacation days or manage my vacation days. I just wanted to be able to do that. So I built this company, and my business partner Cody, he's 7 years younger. He doesn't have kids, but he feels the same way. He also came through that whole financial independence, retire early world, and we just think about things very different. I can even tell in Hampton the way that I approach things sometimes is left field than other people
Hmm.
because those were our influences. And we're a meetingless company, so we don't have meetings. And that's interesting, but that's something that I realized too, kind of from Apple. Like, if you're really efficient, there are meetings at Apple. Don't get me wrong, there are meetings at Apple
Yeah.
every day, but you can do a lot of communication via other things. So we use Slack, we use Asana, and honestly, we use Deep Thought. So some people use meetings; they like to just like spit out stuff with other people.
Oh, it's interesting.
We like to pre-think. So whenever I'm presenting an idea to my business partner, I have already thought through. And that's something I got at Amazon, actually, where we used to write white papers before we had meetings. And we would write like 2-page briefs. And the first 10 minutes of the meeting was silence. Everyone would read the paper. But no one brought half-baked ideas. Like, if you have to write a paper about it, you've thought through all the different scenarios. And it's just a more efficient meeting that way. So I brought that to this company. And then we don't have employees, which is a huge thing too, because employees, there's meetings, there's one-on-ones. When I was at MetLife, I was trying to build this little army. I had like 29 employees or something at some
Yeah.
point. It was crazy, but it brought a lot of extra overhead that didn't necessarily drive revenue, but it was like the right thing to do. I mean, you want to meet with your employees, you want to have one-on-ones, you want to do these things. We use all contractors at Gold City Ventures, and we make decisions based on that. So it's not necessarily do we have the money to hire somebody. It's like, can we do this with a contractor? And it's a little easier. It's like project based versus, bringing someone on board, having to fill them in type thing.
You are world class. And I just don't see you ever retiring, though. I know the whole retire early is a theme for you. I just don't see it.
No, I don't. And honestly, with email, we didn't get into this, but we wrote a 3-year email funnel. So every lead that comes in through our business is taken on a journey a train journey for 3 years where they're getting off at different stops. And over time, we can just see which stops are more or less effective and we can make those adjustments. But, you would ask me about being a mom, and I think like, oh, good thing I set the company up this way, because now I'm about to have 3 kids. And even though we do have a nanny, she's not full time and she got some issues. She cancels a lot. And, kids get sick, like stuff happens. You just can't do anything about it. But because I have the company set up the way it is, I'm not like having to cancel 50 meetings and, stressing out and worried like, oh, my revenue is going to drop. My revenue is not going to drop because of the automation. It will be for other
Yeah,
reasons, but not this.
but whether it's this or not, I mean, I just see you evolving. Like I just don't, I just don't. I mean, even if you're in Belize or Florence or you know Australia, I just see you like. I just don't. I like your curiosity strikes me as someone who just is always going to have something going on relative to a business.
Yeah,
But
I'm never
maybe
going to
not.
retire early. I'm never
Yeah.
going to retire early. It was like it was this. I don't want to say it was the right thing to focus on because it got me to where I am today. But I'm just not a sit down, relax type person, and I didn't marry that person either. So
Yeah.
we'll be still going till the end, till we
Well,
can.
Julie, this has been a treat. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed taking me through your journey because yeah, it's inspirational. I mean, it's not typical, right? It They're no typical. There's threads, there's commonality, but people don't leave MetLife, Apple, and Amazon. There's just of all the entrepreneurs uh, you could probably count on one hand, and you're started one of people who had been at Apple and Amazon. I mean, those are two of the most iconic brands of the last 20 years, and nobody, that'll last forever, and the value and all that stuff. It's just it leaves me speechless. So, I really enjoyed chatting with you. How will people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you, or they go to your website because you don't want to be gotten a hold of? What's the best way?
This is crazy, but we don't have personal email addresses to the business. As you know, I use a personal email. But you can go to goldcityventures.com if you want to learn more about selling on Etsy. But if you want to just follow me, I post occasionally on Millennial Boss is my Instagram handle. So 2 L's, 2 N's, Millennial Boss. And I'm not the best at social, but that's probably could DM me if anyone wants to get in contact.
I love it, Julie. You're great and an inspiration, not only young women but anybody entrepreneurial to follow their own path. And there's no one way, and you're living proof of it. So I appreciate you coming on. Thanks.
Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks for listening to JaySapChats. I hope you leave a little bit better than you came. And here's wishing you a beautiful week.